Fox hopes you're not too blown away by these comebacks. What is the greatest comeback to an insult you've ever heard? During WW1, Switzerland had a tiny standing army, but they were very skilled marksmen. Wilhelm II of Germany asked what 250k Swiss troops would do if he decided to invade with 500k German troops. The Swiss said, shoot twice and go home. And that, good sir, is how getting Swiss cheesed got the definition we know today. Switzerland is actually neutral now, in part because they were such good fighters. Many European countries hired Swiss mercenaries to fight for them. At least, that's what I heard in a YouTube video. Joe Pine interviewing Frank Zappa. Joe, I guess your long hair makes you a woman. FZ, I guess your wooden leg makes you a table. How does a dude named Pine have a wooden leg? What if it's mahogany or oak? Not even clever, but one of my favorite Zappa lines, because it's so outlandish, is may your shud come to life and kiss you on the face. Nobody looks good with brown lipstick. Was that just Zappa's way of saying, don't be a kiss ass? 18th century British radical politician John Wilkes was told in Parliament by a political opponent, sir, I do not know whether you will die on the gallows or of the pox. Wilkes shot back with that depends, my lord, on whether I embrace your lordship's principles or your mistress. Imagine hitting someone with such a burn that people are discussing it 250 years later. I wanna act like I'm sophisticated enough to get this, but I'm absolutely not. The pox, a slang for disease, or smallpox, or something equally nasty that would kill you, or hurt you real bad. The gallows, death by hanging. So he, Wilkes, basically said, if I follow your principles, I'll be hanged. If I duck your side chick, I'll die of standard or some weird disease. Implying that his political opponent basically has no morals and his side chick is a disease-ridden woman. My grandparents used to bicker. My grandmother generally came out on top, as she was fierier. One time though, she was asking him to do a bunch of stuff, and he muttered, if you'd lose some weight, you could do it yourself. She fixed her gaze on him, and glowered, I'm thinking of getting rid of about 200 pounds of useless fat immediately. He replied, you're going to cut off your foot. Man, nobody bickers like old married couples bicker. They've had decades to perfect their craft. Someone yelled out in a Walmart, I'm not ashamed of who I am. Another voice echoed back, that's your parents' job. For some reason everyone in high school thought I was a lesbian, so a straight dude in my grade walked by me and was trying to make fun of me / gay bash and said, well at least I don't like girls. I just kinda stared at him and waited for it to click. Saw a clip of a stand-up comedian the other day, and he says something along the lines of the first time I had sex it was terrible, the first time I had sex, and a woman chimes in with you mean yesterday? Crowd laughs for a while, and while the comedian is waiting for them to calm down you can see the gears turn in his head. Once it gets down to basically a few chuckles, he just says glad you remember, and the crowd just lost their shit. It was amazing. Here ya go. I used to work with this like 70-year-old woman. She was a supervisor, and one day one of the ladies who worked with us told this old lady to kiss my ass and the old lady replied, where do I start? You're so fat your crack goes all the way up your back. Gran, how many times do we have to tell you? We are not a crematorium. I asked my mother why she always wears makeup despite being in her 40s. She told me she wears makeup so she doesn't look like me. Edit, I was 9. A guy makes fun of his bald friend by rubbing his head and saying, wow, your head is as smooth as my wife's bottom. The friend also rubs his head and says, wow, you're right. That had to hurt. Quiet guy in my art class got called queerbait. He replied with, if I'm the bait then you're the catch of the day. My 10-year-old cousin was pushed aside by an older student at school who also felt the need to call him a gay child. My cousin told him not to get his hopes up. You wish became the kryptonite to gay jokes in my elementary school for a while growing up. One of my co-workers was cold calling customers, trying to get appointments to drum up business. One of them told him to go duck his hand, and he responded with I've got that penciled in for 3. I should be done by 4, if you'd like to come in for an appointment then. The guy laughed his ass off, and ended up coming in for the appointment. Winston Churchill, of course. Lady Nancy Astor, Winston, if you were my husband, I'd poison your tea. Churchill, Nancy, if I were your husband, I'd drink it. Winston, you are drunk, disgustingly drunk. Yes, madam, but you're fat. And when morning comes, I shall be sober. I was the one insulted, but not the one with the comeback. I was out with a coworker and her friends and my buddy and I were leaving a little too early for her sensibilities. She jokingly got up in my face and said, "Smell that? Smells like pussy." A guy playing at the pool table next to us stepped forward and said, "I'm sorry, that must be me. I just ate. It was amazing." You sure do talk a lot for never saying anything. Not heard, but read. Easily the Spartans reply to Philip II of Macedon. As Philip II of Macedon was conquering Greek city-states left and right, Sparta was left alone. Philip had achieved a crushing victory, and Sparta was relatively weak and without walls. Philip sent a message to the Spartans saying, "If I invade Laconia you will be destroyed, never to rise again." The Spartans replied with one word, "If." My grandma asked my cousin, who'd had lots of partners and 2 kids at this point, if she was ever going to get married. Cousin, it's not the same nowadays. We don't buy cars without test driving them first. Grandma, yeah. But they don't let you put 100,000 miles on them either. Point goes to Granny. Your cousin's not a car, she's a bicycle. I've been called worse things by better people. For context, this was famously said by former Canadian Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau when he found out Richard Nixon called him an asshole. A friend of mine was getting bitched at by these 2 identical twin girls in a class I had once. He replied with a troubling look on his face and said, "If you 2 are identical, how come only one of you are hot?" That dude played the long game as those 2 girls looked rather perplexed for the rest of the session. Sorry on this topic. If you want to incite chaos, go on a girl's Instagram and find a group photo of 3 or more. Then comment, "You 2 look great." I have something similar. Have a group text made up of 5 people. It's called 3 of my favorite people. In high school, we congregated in our cliques around the benches. One friend is cracking his knuckles and did this fairly often. Another friend saw this and remarked, "You pop your hands a lot. You must jerk off a lot." The friend that popped his hands immediately looks at him and calmly says, "You pop your jaw a lot. You must suck duck a lot." Weirdly enough, no one laughed. We just all shrugged and took it as a logical explanation. It's been over 20 years and I still think about the logic. In middle school a boy asked when I was going to grow some books. So I asked him when he was donating his. I'm still really proud of that one. Context: John Oliver from HBO interviews Stephen Hawking, may he rest in peace. Joe, and there may be a universe where I'm more intelligent than you? Shh, there may even be a universe where you are funny. The greatest comeback I witnessed was when Kumail Nanjiani was on mean tweets and someone asked, "Is your duck multiple colors?" And he said, "Yes, every shade of your mom's lipstick." Throwing shade. Every shade. What are you looking at? I'm still trying to find out. I've got girth like a can of con. And the clapback was unforgettable. But you've got length like a can of tuna. Everyone busted up. Mr. Girth tried to hide his embarrassment, but was tied up. No comeback. And a room of men laughing uncontrollably. A friend in high school on our way to a track meet. He was staring at a car in the parking that was really nice. When this bag saw him. Bag, why bothering looking at that when you know you'll never be able to get one? My friend, the same reason you watch porn. The entire bus erupted, and it's still one of the funniest things I've ever heard. It was a exchange between 2 co-workers a few years back, basically a slut shaming gone wrong. Person A had only ever slept with one person, their previous boyfriend, that they were still obsessed with. Person B was the opposite, and would bang a different person every week. Person A, I can't believe how many people you've slept with. I don't understand how people can have sex with someone they aren't in love with. Person B, well your ex-boyfriend seemed to manage it okay. Person A, silence as he dies inside. My grandma got into a fight at the grocery store with a guy who told my 9-year-old brother to move the duck out of the way. They were going at it, and his final words were, "Suck my duck, bitch." She said across the store, "If I could find it, bitch." The classic, "You're adopted. At least my parents chose to have me." Glenn McGrath, Aussie cricketer, got frustrated with Ed O'Brands as his every attempt to stump Brands failed. This is what happened next. "McGrath, why are you so fat?" Brants, because every time I duck your wife, she gives me a biscuit. Easy. Now, don't let your brains go to your head. David Letterman, I'm not as dumb as I look. Tina Fey, how could you be?